Hi, team. Hopping on a little early here just to say hello. I'm going to hang out until it hits the top of the hour. Let me make sure there's a lot of construction happening on outside. So if it looks like the microphone's working, if you find that the sounds outside are too distracting, just pop it in the chat and let me know. Okay, so I can't believe it's the end of Q3. That's so crazy. It's so crazy and it's not. Every time we come to the end of something, I feel like everyone is like, oh my God, I can't believe it. We need to start believing it. We need to start believing it. Time moves forward. Time moves forward. So we'll just wait one more minute until the top of the hour and then we'll get started officially. The chat is on. So for those of you who are wanting to engage, ask questions, etc., feel free to do so. I turned it on to subscribers only mode, so it kind of filters out any kind of potential like spam and kind of wayward people who just who aren't here for the content. Also, what was that laugh? Ew. Okay, just closing these out. Yeah, lots of exciting stuff happening behind the scenes here. You might have seen on LinkedIn, I've got 2 new team members, which is awesome, which is super, super awesome. You can read more about that online. Okay, we've hit the top of the hour, so let's get started. Every month on the final Thursday of the month, I host what's called a reflect and reset session. So what does that mean? That means that we take this opportunity to come together to reflect on the past month and then reset ourselves for the coming month. So this is a perfect way for you to kind of interrupt any kind of, at the end of the month, sometimes we feel like we're in a little bit of like a little bit of a slump. So this is a great opportunity to interrupt that slump, really notice and harvest all of the good things that you accomplished, that you moved forward, that you experienced, that you received over the course of the past month. Reflect on that, own those celebrations, lean into the hand that you had in helping to bring those to fruition. And then we reset to focus on the next month to come. So let me double check everything. Audio seems to be good. We are going. Okay, great. For those of you who have been around for past reflect and resets and past masterclasses, you realize the struggle around technical difficulties that have been part of the journey. So it looks like we are good to go here. Like I said before we got started, I hopped on a little bit early, but just to kind of get situated. If you want to ask questions, if you want to share things in the chat, that's for subscribers only, to kind of weed out any kind of spam and any kind of stuff that's like, wayward people kind of popping in and popping out. So, but for those of you who have subscribed, feel free to just drop questions, notes, comments in the chat, etc., because I can see those live here. Okay, so for the first part of this particular session, which again happens on the final Thursday of every month, always at 12 noon Mountain Time, so you can pre-plan and put these in your calendar. This is our opportunity to take a look at just how far you've come. It's so important. It's so important because our brains like to focus on what we have not accomplished yet, what we haven't done yet, all the things that remain undone, all the goals that remain unachieved, right? All the to-do list items that haven't been checked off yet. And that's because we're looking ahead, right? Especially for people who are very, goal-oriented and driven and high achieving, generally like fortunately, the badasses that I tend to attract. We're forward facing. It's like we have the blinders on and we're seeing, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm working toward. This is my next goal, which is wonderful for progress, but it can be really crippling when it comes to anyone who struggles with challenges of self-worth, anyone who struggles with imposter syndrome, anyone who really is constantly beating up on themselves or really just seeing the flaws in themselves. And I'm going to put flaws actually in air quotes because that's that's a whole other discussion, but flaws are completely relative and subjective and unhelpful, essentially, to be identifying them from a place of self-deprecation, not from a place of self-improvement. So, and honestly, the line between those two, self-deprecation and the point of self-improvement, that line can be razor thin. So if that's something that you feel like you walk and you kind of you're not exactly on the healthy side of that, let me know, because that is worth a conversation for sure. I might actually do a separate conversation about that, like a separate stream or training about that anyway. So as you look over your month, it might be helpful to bring up your calendar. For me, I live and die by Google Calendar. For those of you who use paper calendars, or if you keep a journal, if you keep a diary, bring that out, excuse me, and take a look at all the things that you did, just the actions that you took. These could be meetings you attended, presentations you gave, deliveries for clients, times you showed up at the gym, times you showed up to help someone else, right? These are all activities that reflect who you were being this month. There's a routine and a pattern to how you live your life. Okay, that routine is a match for the life that you currently live. If you want to live a different kind of life, you must change the routine, because the life you desire to live, or the life that you want to move into, has a different routine associated with it. Your current life has your current routine as a perfect match for it. If you want a different life, you got to change a different routine. And the routine is made up of how are you making decisions around your team resources. For those of you who work with me, as clients, you understand that team stands for time, energy, attention, and money. Time, energy, attention, and money. Those are your resources. Those are yours to start with. Every day, we all have a certain number of those resources that are ours to distribute as how we see fit. This in and of itself is a really important concept, because a lot of times we feel like our time, our energy, our attention, and or our money already is spoken for. It already belongs to someone else, to something else. It is very important for us to take note of and take ownership of how our team resources are being delegated, and to recognize that they are first and foremost ours to begin with. Who gets our time and what gets our time? Who and what gets our energy? Who and what gets our attention? Who and what gets our money? You get to decide that. Just realizing that can be remarkable in terms of a sense of self-empowerment. And when you realize that those are yours to start with, you also realize that you can change how you allocate them. So that's very, very instrumental in terms of wanting to make a pivot, wanting to shift gears and step into a different trajectory toward a life that you would love to experience, instead of this one that you're living now. This one that you're living now, by the way, is fabulous. It is great. This is not about vilifying or, talking shade about your current life. No. This is about celebrating how far you've come, celebrating the life that you have and how abundant it is and how magnificent and rich it is, and honoring that sense of vitality that's coming alive in you, that's saying, I want something different, or I want something more. Okay. So part of that celebration, let's take a look at how you were spending your time. Where were you directing your energy? What were you focusing your attention on? And where was your money going for this past month of March? Now, this is not to start diving in and letting the brain run full speed ahead and say, this was good, this was bad, this was awesome, I have no choice in this, I feel really helpless here, or this is, I have to do this, so I have no choice in the matter. We're taking out the judgment piece of it. We're taking out the assessment of it. We're just taking inventory now. It's not about assessing, it's about inventory. So as you look over the month of March, from March 1st to today, which is the 28th, where did you spend a lot of your time? And think about the word spend. We use it all the time for money in a very tangible way. I'm spending money to get a product or service, right? You're also spending your time, spending your energy, spending your attention in exchange for something. So here we go. Here we go with the with the emojis, the reactions. Here's where you get to decide, is this the way that I'm spending my time, energy, attention, and money, the way that I spent it in the month of March? Is this how I want to spend it in April? So I just want to kind of put that, we're not looking at April just yet, but I want to plant the seed of, does this align the way I'm allocating my team resources as evidenced by what I did and experienced in the month of March? Does that align with where I want to go? Does it align with the version of me who I want to be? Does it align with the progress I want to make in my life? Okay, so just some thoughts to kind of get that going, get those wheels turning. The next thing I want you to do is, as you're looking over the past month, celebrate everything. Even the things that didn't go the way that you wanted to, you're here. You keep showing up. You keep showing up. That in and of itself is worthy of celebration. We here do not just celebrate the obvious goals, the obvious wins, the things that are celebrated, the things where you get a trophy for them, the things where you get public recognition for them, the things where you get some kind of reward for achieving a certain kind of status or level or accomplishment. Those are wonderful things, and we acknowledge them as standardized practice. What we don't acknowledge typically is the wins that are on the way to the wins. So, for example, if you were to win a championship in whatever your sport is, or whatever competition you enter, there's a lot of stuff on the road to that championship that is absolutely worthy of celebration. Every time you show up in practice, every time you show up after a loss, every time you keep getting better, you keep showing up and trying to learn and trying to improve, every attempt is worthy of celebration, because that's an attempt that you didn't have to make. Celebrate the stuff where you showed up, even if it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, even if it ended up on the surface being a loss, there's a win in there. So here's where you go ahead and take a look at how you spent your time, energy, attention, and money in the month of March. What are things that you experienced? What kind of activities did you engage in? What kind of things did you do? And identify the wins that are below the surface. The surface wins are the ones where you get the recognition, the ones you get the acclaim and the public acknowledgement, right? And things turn out the way that you wanted them to. Things went to your preference. Below the surface is looking for the wins that were on the way to those wins. Okay, so every time, let's say you own a business and you sign a new client, you can celebrate the fact that a new client gets to be impacted by you in a positive way. And you also celebrate every marketing email you send out, every post you put on social media, every time you put yourself out there in a networking event. All of those things, even if they weren't directly, I did this and then this awesome thing happened, it doesn't necessarily have to be so direct, and it often isn't very direct. But you celebrate all of the actions that you chose to take that led to the outcome that you wanted. So now, when you look back over your month, you're celebrating a lot more than just the things that were on the surface celebratory, right? And then the third level that we look at is we celebrate the wins that were in the losses. I made allusion to this earlier, but here's where we go really deep and say, even if it all fell on its face, even if it all turned out not at all the way that you wanted it to, celebrate something, at least one thing, but I had challenged you to find 3 things that are representative of something about you, representative of how tenacious you are, of how committed you are, of how visionary you are, right? Of how loving or compassionate you are. So, for example, there's a client of mine who recently went through something of a breakup, right? It was a new relationship. It was it was in that kind of like exploration phase. She realized, this is not my guy. This is not my guy. And so that led to her initiating a separation of that exploration phase, right? And so it was a breakup of sorts. And on the surface, it would be very easy to write a narrative saying this failed. I thought this was my person. He didn't turn out to be my person. This relationship failed. It would be very easy and very common to make that kind of connection and assess the outcome of the fact that you are no longer talking to this person in a romantic way, pursuing a partnership with this person, to write that off as a failure. You wanted a relationship, it didn't turn out to be a relationship, therefore it failed. That is such a watered down version of the actual truth of something like that happening. So the wins that can be identified and deserve to be identified and celebrated are that she went in with her eyes open and she was very intentional about who she was looking for and what kind of relationship she was looking to experience, right? She stayed very open with her communication with this other person, right? And was realizing that, wait a minute, there are certain things that I really love about this person and certain things that are just not my person. And then she vocalized that. She didn't drag it out. She didn't try and pretend like everything was great and try and keep going because it's just easier to keep dating. It's just more comfortable because breaking something off can be really messy, right? And really uncomfortable and can be really painful. And so we can shy away from wanting to even broach that kind of situation. But she did. And so while someone with like a lower level of awareness would say like, oh, I failed in the relationships, or like, she's terrible at relationships, she'll never find anyone, blah, blah, blah. It's all the like the wrong and incorrect, factually incorrect messaging that we get caught up in. And so we end up writing off all of the gold that comes with these situations of perceived failure. It's not true. Right? There were so many wins in that process. She was true to herself. She was true to her vision. She was open and communicative, and she stood true to what she was aware of at every step of her highest awareness. So as soon as she knew, I know it in my heart, this isn't my person, she initiated a conversation that a lot of people shy away from, right? And that is something absolutely to be proud of and absolutely to celebrate. So even in the things where it might be easy to write it off as a failure, find the wins. Be committed to finding the wins. Be committed to being proud of how you showed up. Okay. So as you look over your month, there's going to be things that turned out the way that you wanted them to. There's going to be things that didn't turn out the way you wanted them to. There might be things that completely blindsided you. Find the goodness. Find the things that you can be proud of. Find the things that you can be grateful for. Not even that you can be grateful for. Find the things that you choose to be grateful for. Right? Another client of mine, her partner just got in a pretty serious accident that left him with major injuries that required emergency surgery, totally out of the blue. Of course, no one expected this. And by a lot of accounts, you could, the average person would write this off as, this is terrible, this is awful, oh my gosh, da, da, da. And they go into like stress mode, reaction mode, right? And they're letting the circumstances dictate what they are experiencing mentally and emotionally and consequently physically. She has come so far in this work that she can immediately reach for, I'm so grateful this wasn't worse. Accidents happen. If we live in a world where we're going to be, among other people and among things like cars and bicycles and advanced machinery and things like that. They're going to be accidents that happen. Your opportunity is to decide when things happen that are, one, out of my control, and two, not to my preference. How do I show up? That's what's in your control. So the stuff that was out of your control this month, the stuff that happened that you didn't see coming, the stuff that happened that didn't go the way you would have preferred them to go, how did you show up? What can you be proud of there? So my client, she can be super proud of, one, stepping quickly into the role of a caretaker while he recovers, and two, being able to access gratitude in the face of situations that are obviously not to your preference, to her preference, to his preference, to anybody's preference. Nobody wanted this to happen. No one even foresaw this happening. Okay, so we can lean into celebrating, how did I show up in that moment? I could have shown up another way. I could have shown up in a much more constricted or not my best self way. I could have let that lesser version of me take the wheel, but I didn't. Or I let her take the wheel for a minute and then I brought her back. And then my higher self stepped in. That's the stuff that is absolutely worthy of celebration. So find it. There's so much of it. In a whole month, there's so much of it. So harvest all the goodness. Okay? Feel that sense of pride. Feel that sense of ownership of, yeah, I did that. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to show up that way. I didn't have to allocate my time, energy, attention, and money resources that way, but I did. I might not have liked it. And here's where the argument of like, yeah, but like I have to pay bills. You chose to pay bills. You don't have to pay your bills. You choose to pay your bills. You might not like it, like, oh, I'm spending so much money on electricity or so much money on the water bills or rent or the car payments, but you get to write the narrative around that. Saying, I'm really proud of paying my bills this month. I'm really proud that I even have bills to pay. A lot of people don't have bills to pay and they wish they did, right? Because the fact that they don't have bills means something. Perhaps it means that they're really struggling financially. Perhaps it means that they're really struggling with their home situation. Perhaps it means that something has happened that no longer allows them to have stable bills to keep the lights on regularly. Okay, so let's not lament the things that we choose to do. You don't have to like them, but there's so much opportunity there for you to reclaim power around that and say, I'm choosing to do this. I choose to be a responsible homeowner. I choose to be a responsible bill payer. I choose to manage my money in ways that align with a quality of life that I decide for me and my family to have. Right? Part of the quality of life that we decide for our families to have is to have electricity on demand, is to have clean water on demand. You can take pride in this stuff that we take for granted. You can take absolute pride when we recognize and turn our attention to focus on how did my time, energy, attention, and money go out this month? Where did I allocate them toward? And take pride in every single one of those decisions. Now, as you look to the month of April, here's where we get to assess, do I want to continue allocating my time, energy, attention, and money to those things that I allocated them to in March? Because remember, that's a routine. The new life has a new routine associated with it. So you have a routine of, where does your time typically go to? Where does your energy and attention usually go to? Where does your money usually go to? Right? And again, it's not to criminalize or vilify how you've spent those things before. It's simply to assess, do I want to continue making those decisions in that way? Do I want to keep showing up in this particular way? Or the life that I desire to live, do I need to start showing up differently to be a match for that life? The version of you who's living the life that you want, how do they spend their time, energy, attention, and money? How do they show up in the face of unpreferred circumstances? This is something you get to make an advanced decision about and to practice in the month of April, because you will get circumstances and opportunities to practice showing up in a way that you choose, right? You get to decide today, ahead of time, before April comes, that when unexpected circumstances come my way, here's what I'm going to remember. Here's what I'm going to reach for. Here's the support I'm going to reach for. Here's the tool I'm going to reach for. Here's the truth that I'm going to ground myself in, right? And that might be truth that everything's going to be okay. It might be uncomfortable now and it might feel like it's not okay, but it's going to be okay eventually. I can figure this out. For those of you who feel perhaps an ongoing sense of being defeated or feeling like an imposter or feeling like I can't, like I keep failing, not reaching my goals, that version of you might have a certain identity associated with that now. You get to practice identifying as a person who is successful, as the person who follows through and reaches the goals that she wants to reach. That is remarkably abundant. We have to identify it first in order for the results around us to organize around it, to reflect that identity. So here's your opportunity to say, who do I want to be in the month of April? And what would I love to move the needle on in April? Because there's a lot of different initiatives that you can invite into your life. You can invite in new work goals. You can invite in new team members. You can invite in new relationships. You could invite in a new way of interacting with the folks around you. You can invite in a whole new job, a whole new career. You can invite in a new version of you who prioritizes pride and accomplishment and a sense of self-ownership instead of the person who's quick to hide in the shadows, who's quick to downplay what they can contribute, who is very quick to cut themselves down. Okay? You have a say over this. So as you take a look at April, we're going to have on the final Thursday of April, we're going to do another reflective reset session. So you get to decide, what would I love to be reflecting on? What would I love to be celebrating? You can choose that now. What kind of progress would you love to have seen and had a hand in creating over the month of April? Okay. When you consider that, then you get to decide and get to explore, okay, who do I need to be? What kind of traits do I need to embody? What kind of actions do I need to take in order for me to be the person who is celebrating that on the final Thursday of April, right? Because Robyn's going to ask me, my coach Robyn is going to ask me, right? So here's where you get to decide ahead of time. This is what I'm working toward because I really want to be celebrating this. Okay. Take a look at not only what would you love to be celebrating at the end of the month, but also how do you want to be allocating your time, energy, attention, and money resources? And maybe they might be allocated the same way. Like I imagine you're not going to stop paying your water bill next month. I also would never advise that. But maybe you have a different relationship with your bills. Maybe instead of being frustrated or feeling a sense of scarcity or feeling out of control, saying, I don't have ownership over this, I don't have a say in the bills that I pay, maybe in April you're going to shift and practice being the person who just tries to say, you know what, I'm really proud that I'm able to write this check. I'm really proud that I'm able to make this payment to keep the lights on. I'm really proud that I get to pay and buy my kids a new pair of sneakers, right? Like I get to do that. I'm able to do that, right? I even have a kid to buy sneakers for, right? We want to lean into really prioritizing gratitude, really celebrating the things that can be celebrated. You get to decide, what do you want to be grateful for? What do you want to be celebrating and proud of, right? And when things come unexpectedly, I know I kind of talked about this, but it bears repeating because it's super important. When things happen not the way that you want them to happen, or if they don't happen at all, you also get to decide, who do you want to be as you navigate those situations, as you navigate that piece of news, those results, that outcome. In the face of unpreferred circumstances, Who do you want to practice being? This is not about doing it perfectly. This is about practicing. You know what? I'm going to practice being the person who reaches for gratitude. I'm going to practice being the person who, when she gets upset, she goes and cools off before she has a conversation with her partner. Right? For those of you for whom this is applicable. This is all practice, folks. In March, you practice being today's version of you. And she's marvelous. You get to decide. Oh my goodness. Yes, she's marvelous. You get to decide that in April, who do you want to practice being? So yeah, this is about goal setting, but it's coming from a very different angle. This is not about, okay, what goals do you want to hit and what are you going to do to go get them? Let's talk to me about who do you want to be in April? Because that version of you, yeah, she goes after certain goals. Yeah, she takes certain actions, but she also takes those actions in a particular way. Is she going to hustle for those goals and burn herself out along the way and just do whatever it takes and, have let her relationships with her family go, deprioritize everything that is not associated with work in service of, in the name of going for those goals? Or is she going to be a different version of her where she goes for her goals and she learns how to do them smarter and not just work harder? And that is not about the number of hours you put into something, but it's about the way that you go for those goals and the way that you take care of yourself and the things that are important to you, including your relationships, including your own quality of life along the way. What if you could practice being her? It's not all about the goals. Also, there's 1,000,001 way to reach those goals. So you get to decide, what am I going after? How do I want to go after them? But of utmost importance, who am I going to be this month? Who am I going to practice being this month? So I'll leave you with that. Reflect on the month of March. You can watch this replay. Reflect on the month of March. Harvest all of the goodness. Harvest all of the things that you choose to be grateful for. Remember, if you're noticing here, there's a theme of you taking the lead. We're moving away from, here are the things that I can be happy about, I can be grateful for, I can celebrate. You get to choose. You get to choose whether you celebrate a perceived failure or not. You get to choose whether you are grateful for that failure or not. It's not the failure or the outcome of something that decides for you how you can feel about it. This is about taking ownership and creating your own experience of life on purpose, with intention. So as you reflect over the month of March, remember that. You get to decide every single thing about how you interpret that month and what you take with you to move the needle in the month of April. Okay? And you get to decide what you want to be celebrating at the end of the month. So if you found this useful, please share this with someone else in your life. This is one of 2 free trainings that I offer every month. Next month, I'm running a masterclass. It's the first Wednesday of every month, also at noon Mountain Time. So I'll see you then. And if you have any questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are the 2 platforms that I am active on the most. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know you had a fabulous March, and I can't wait to celebrate with you in the month of April. Talk soon.